Let's get started. What we've learned about so far is the beginning of the French Revolution, the Reign of Terror, the rise and fall of Napoleon. Napoleon briefly made things better, actually improved the quality of life for the people in France, brought order to France, brought glory to France, and then lost it all within a couple terrible, terrible battles. And after Napoleon, they restored the king. It's not the first time we've heard about a king being restored, right? Louis the 10-5-1-1-1. Louis the 18th comes to power. He's the brother or relative of Louis the 16th, who was beheaded by the guillotine. And under him, he's not an absolute ruler anymore. So at least that is an effect of the French Revolution. No longer an absolute monarchy, but he is a constitutional monarchy, meaning he has to follow the rules that the legislatures have set forth in the Constitution. He does not have unlimited absolute power. And life in France overall is, well, it depends on who you ask and who you're speaking to. For the peasants, there's no more feudalism. Taxation is more fair, but peasants don't have a say in government. Even in the United States of America, not everyone had a voice in that enlightened democracy. But things are significantly better in terms of taxation's more fair. The bourgeoisie got the best deal out of the French Revolution. They gained the most say in government. They're the ones who are the educated ones. They are in the legislature that has set forth the Constitution for the king. They have better jobs now that Napoleon had made careers open to talent, right? They took away some of the nobles' privileges, and they are now included in the upper class society in terms of voice, in terms of choice, in terms of opportunity. And the nobles got, they were on top before the French Revolution. They didn't have to pay any taxes. But now the nobles, they do have to pay taxes. They did lose a lot of their special privileges, like inheriting jobs. But they still have a say, probably even more of a say than the bourgeoisie in the government. They're still at the top of society. But now they just lost some of their privileges. So, after Napoleon, life in France is overall better for people, but France is, at one point under Napoleon was the strongest country, dominated all of Europe under Napoleon, and then he got destroyed in Russia, and he has, and then all of those countries that Napoleon took over took that opportunity while France was weak to just kick Napoleon out, destroy the French military once again. And Napoleon lost power so quickly, as fast as he gained it. And this sparked nationalism. This sparked this idea that, hey, we want to be ruled by somebody. We want to be unified by our commonalities. We want to be Italian. We want to be German. We want to be with other Germans who speak German. Not by a French ruler, not by an Austrian ruler who doesn't really share our same culture, life experiences, religions, And so Napoleon kind of sparked that. It's kind of like if you were to think about, what's a good analogy? I mean, it's hard because it's a very complex ism. But people start to have pride in their culture and their people and decide, why are we constantly being controlled and ruled by other traditionally powerful countries? Why can't we be independent? Kind of like, once, I don't know, it's not patriotism. It's not patriotism is almost always a positive. Patriotism is being proud of what your country stands for, what your country fights for. It's not necessarily being proud of the people within your country, no matter what they stand right? Nationalism is good in the beginning because it unifies people, as we'll learn about in the next unit. But during World War II, it takes like a crazy turn, and that's when you get Hitler, who's crazy nationalistic, and then it takes on a negative term. Patriotism in general is a positive. Patriotism and nationalism are not the same. So what we're going to get and see is the key players of the Congress of Vienna. We got Russia. We got Prussia. We got Austria. I can't even see. 1 second. We got France. We got Britain. And we got, I already said Austria. So these are the big players that we've been talking about. And they all decide at the Congress of Vienna. And Vienna is in, let's see, I'll just show you where Vienna is. Right here in the Austrian Empire, Congress of Vienna. They meet together, all these major powers, Great Britain, France, Russia, Austria. And they decide it is in their self-interest to make sure that we balance power, make sure we never allow one country in Europe to become too powerful like they did with Napoleon in France. And so what they would decide to do at the Congress of Vienna is to balance power. And you're going to see the political philosophies that we already started to learn about under the French Revolution, liberalism and conservatism. Liberals wanted more change, more freedom. So you got to keep in mind, like, they're political philosophies, but they mean different things in different time periods and different situations. Overall, liberalism means more change. Overall, conservatism means less change. But within this context, liberals want more personal freedom. Under conservatives in the Congress of Vienna, they want less personal freedom. They wanted to still have monarchies. That's not what conservatism means in the American. America doesn't want, conservatives don't want a monarchy. They do want less change, but they don't want to, so you just got to make sure that you understand that these are political philosophies you see in every, political system, and they have basic meanings, but then from there they mean something different depending on the context. So conservatives want monarchies, liberals want more freedom from those monarchies. So let's see. Europe, 1812. So this is still during the French. This is still during Napoleon, 1812. French satellites, French allies is the purple, France is the green. French enemies during Napoleon is Great Britain. He goes to war against Russia, and he goes to war against Portugal. But after the Congress of Vienna, they don't want to wipe France off the map because that would create a vacuum of power. That might create a huge, what are you going to do with all those French people? It's not a super good idea. So after the Congress of Vienna, we're going to see the map change a little bit, and you should have already noted these changes on our map that you got in the beginning of the unit. The German Confederation is going to have a bigger boundary. Prussia is going to get more land. You don't have to know all of the differences in exactly the maps. I'm just talking about them. So just put down your pencil and start listening. The goal of the Congress of Vienna is to balance powers. So the map is going to change in a way that makes sure France goes back to its original size. France doesn't look that different. And all the countries that helped defeat Napoleon were awarded land. So Russia now gets Poland because Russia helped defeat Napoleon. Prussia was given land in Western Germany to help prevent future French expansion. So this is Prussia, that green, and they also get this green now to help, it's like a buffer, which makes sense. Just trying to keep France in France and not expanding into these weaker nations. And Prussia was a pretty strong country. All of these, monarchies that were overthrown by Napoleon are restored. They're gaining back their thrones. The Netherlands gets Belgium, which is right around here. Piedmont, Sardinia. This is Piedmont. This is Sardinia. It becomes a unified nation to strengthen. It becomes the strongest country within Italy. Italy is not unified yet. And the German Confederation is going to be, that's the outline, is going to be headed by Austria, which is part of the German Confederation, but also kind of something different. And we're going to see this unify and kick Austria out later, next unit. But as you can see, we already talked about these a little bit. You don't have to go into, like I went over all of these. You don't have to know every single little detail. You just got to understand that Europe is trying to rebalance power. They're trying to keep France in France, and they're trying to keep the previous people in power, give them back those powers. And eventually, actually, the goal is to prevent another war. And the Congress system is significantly successful. They do prevent another major world war. The next major one is until 1914, which is World War I. So that was a success. But in a lot of ways, the Congress system, it didn't listen to all the smaller countries within the system, and it led to a growth of nationalism. You know, some of these countries in here don't want to be ruled by Austria, and yet they gave Austria the most power over the German Confederation. A lot of these countries start to want to unify with the rest of the Italian boot and not be ruled by, again, who? Austria. Some of Poland doesn't want to be ruled by Russia. They have a different, background. They have a different language. And so we're going to see the rise of nationalism and national pride in their people and in their culture. They're all going to be competing. They're all going to start to say we want to have a government with democratic ideals. That they really believed, really, nationalism at this point in time, nationalism and liberalism were practically one and the same. They were thinking we can't have a nation, made up an independent nation made up of our own people without giving the people a voice. That's what they thought at this time period. Later, we're going to see Hitler, and that's not the case. Hitler was pretty much a dictator. And he didn't give people a voice, yet he was nationalistic. But at this point, nationalism was only a good thing. It was a way to unify and overthrow their oppressors. It's going to lead to a lot of revolutions. In the next unit, we're going to learn about the 1830s revolutions happening all over. They're small. They're put down pretty quickly. And then they try again, and they use even more violence in 1848 all across Europe. And they're put down again. And eventually, in the 1860s and 70s, we're going to see Germany unify and Italy unify. So the map that we understand Europe as today is going to start to become more similar. But anyways, that's all you really need to know. I would say this power slide and this slide is the most important slide. All the slides in between are just me trying to explain everything. You don't have to know who gains what power where. You just have to know nationalism grows, and the goal of balance is to balance power, and to keep France from ever becoming, or keep any country from ever becoming that powerful again. All right, and then the other PowerPoint that we do need to talk about is Latin American independence. We're not going to do the whole thing. Some of it should be a review. So what we're going to talk about is Haiti, which is right here. Haiti. Haiti is a Spanish, no, it's not Spanish. It's a French empire. It's a French colony. And why did we have colonies? If you think all the way back to Unit 3, it was to provide the mother country with raw materials to manufacture. And it was all about mercantilism. The goal of all these European countries was to compete by not having to buy a lot of stuff from other European countries. It was just to make it and have it yourself and have a favorable balance of trade. And there's a lot of natural resources in the New World. There's a lot of metals, there's a lot of cash crops. But unfortunately, were the Europeans, mining all this stuff? No. They got the natives, pretty much enslaved the Native Americans to do it. And when the Native Americans died of smallpox, they brought in the African slaves to do the dirty work for them. And again, Haiti is right there, which isn't too far away from Florida. It's kind of in between Florida and South America. And the government is going to mirror European government. We're going to see viceroys, which are at the top of the authority. You can skip this. You can skip these. All right, here we go. The viceroys would actually be at the very top. If you were to click a little dot and label that viceroy, that is a representative of the king. This is a pyramid that is representing the social structure of the European countries, except it looks different because it's made up of different races. It's a very rigid, you can't move up or down. It's really based on race. And the Peninsulares are the 100% Europeans born in Europe, traveling and settling. They're the settlers, but they were born in Europe. The Creoles are 100% European, but they were born in the Americas. So imagine if you grow up and you move to Germany, and then you have children in Germany. They are you and your race and your spouse's race, but they weren't born in America. They can never be president. They were born in Germany. That's what Creoles are like. They are 100% European parent, but born in the Americas. Mestizos are a mixed race. Mestizos and mulattoes are a mixed race. One European parent, and for mestizos, they had a child with a native, usually a native woman, because there's not a lot of European women that came with the Peninsulares over. And mulattoes are usually, not always, a European father and a African slave mother. And so they are mixed race. And then you actually have the natives and you have the African slaves at the bottom of this social structure. Well, what we're going to see is the Latin American colonies, just like the North American United States, decides they want to have a revolution. They saw the United States do it, throw off their king. They saw France do it and throw off their king. And you got the Enlightenment, and you have all these really brutal European policies, and they're like, why do we have to put up with this? If we thought France was bad, the European colonies were so much worse in terms of unfairness, right? They had slavery, and they had poverty, and they had disease, and it was based on race, and it was so much worse. And now they're inspired by the American and French revolutions. And the only one that we're going to really spend time right now to learn about, right here, it is right there, is the Haitian Revolution, 1791. So it's kind of happening, it happened before Napoleon. Well, let me check on that actually. All right. It started in 1791, but went up to 1804. Napoleon is pretty much crowned emperor in 1804, 1805. So it does happen under Napoleon as well. It's ongoing. But anyways, what is significant about this is this man, you do need to know his name. You don't need to know how to spell it, but you got to be kind of close. Toussaint L'Ouverture. This is a picture of him. He led the Haitian Rebellion, and it's extra significant because he was an African slave who led this rebellion. The bourgeoisie in France, the educated, led the revolution. He was able to do it from the bottom to the top. That is very impressive and very interesting. He led a slave rebellion, and eventually other colonies under the Spanish and the British are going to do the same in Latin America. But they're not as impressive as what he did, because those other, Simón Bolívar and Miguel Hidalgo and stuff like that from Mexico. They're going to come up from like this area and come from these social classes to lead the revolution. Toussaint L'Ouverture came from here. He came from the bottom to the top, and he led a successful revolution. And so the reason we mentioned them, we really should have went in more depth. And maybe we'll have time closer to the end of the year to go more in depth into these revolutions. But oh, here we go. They get their independence in 1804. It's significant because it just shows that everyone, I mean, it's worldwide. America, Europe, and now we're going to start to see the Latin American revolutions are deciding we want our independence. And that goes in line with the Congress of Vienna, where a lot of those other smaller European nations are saying, we want our independence. Why are we, being ruled by Austria when we're Italian? And it goes in line. So we're starting to see countries come into their own and be more independent, for better and for worse. Let's see. And that's all we're going to learn about. We don't have to talk about the other ones. We'll talk about them another time. All right. So what you need to do if you missed today is make sure you finish number